Admiral Zefka stared at the reading scrolling across her command screen, her four eyes blinking in disbelief. The massive warship floating in the void before them registered as impossible on every level. According to the Galactic Council's ear, most advanced sensors, the human vessel was simultaneously too large to exist, too heavily armed to function, and too primitive to pose a threat. Yet here it was, drifting silently through the Kepler Nebula like a metal mountain covered in weapons. Run. The scan again, Zefka ordered, her mandibles clicking with nervous energy. The bridge of the stellar harmony hummed with activity as her crew obeyed. Lieutenant Vextal, a young Altarian with silver skin that rippled when he was anxious, looked up from his station. Admiral, the readings are consistent. The human ship it's 14 kilometers long. That's impossible. No civilization has ever built anything that size for warfare. Zefka's tail lashed behind her. In her 200 years of service to the Galactic Council, she had seen the rise and fall of a dozen species. She had watched entire star systems burn and witnessed the birth of new civilizations. But nothing had prepared her for this. The humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. They were considered a young, aggressive species, dangerous in small numbers but limited by their primitive technology. Their largest ships barely reached 2 kilometers in length. Their weapons were crude projectile systems and basic energy cannons. They were regarded as barely more than space pirates by most council members. This ship changed everything. Magnify the image, Zefka commanded. The main view screen flickered, and the human warship filled their vision. It was not beautiful like the flowing organic curves of Altarian vessels or the crystalline perfection of Centauri designs. It was angular, brutal, and covered in armor plating that looked like it had been hammered together by giants. Weapon ports dotted its hull like the eyes of some ancient predator, but it was the size that made Zefka's blood run cold. The ship was larger than some space stations. It dwarfed the stellar harmony like a whale beside a minnow. Admiral, Communications Officer Nelia whispered, her feathers rustling with fear. We're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Put it through. The view screen shifted, revealing the interior of what appeared to be a command bridge. But where Zefka expected to see the chaotic, cramped conditions typical of human vessels, she found herself looking at a vast space filled with hundreds of crew members working at organized stations. The lighting was harsh and white, casting sharp shadows that made the humans look even more intimidating than usual. A human male stepped forward. He was tall by their species' standards, with graying hair and scars across his face that spoke of countless battles. His uniform was simple black fabric with minimal decoration, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to absolute authority. I am Captain Marcus Chen of the Terran Defense Force vessel, Retribution, the human said, his voice calm and measured. You are trespassing in human-controlled space. Zefka felt her throat constrict. Human-controlled space? The Kepler Nebula had been neutral territory for over a century. Captain Chen, she replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. I am Admiral Zefka of the Galactic Council Fleet. This region of space is under Council jurisdiction. Your presence here violates multiple interstellar treaties. Captain Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. Admiral, those treaties were signed before humanity fully understood the realities of galactic politics. We've decided to renegotiate our position. Renegotiate? Zefka's mandibles clicked rapidly. Captain, you cannot simply claim neutral space. The Council has established laws. The Council, Chen interrupted, has established laws that favor established powers and keep newer species in subservient positions. We've grown tired of being treated as junior members of a club that was never designed to include us. Behind Chen, Zefka could see dozens of human crew members moving with practiced efficiency. Their stations were filled with technology she didn't recognize, displays showing tactical information, weapon systems that seemed far too advanced for human capabilities, and most disturbing of all, what appeared to be real-time intelligence, feeds from across Council space. Captain, Zefka said carefully, your ship is impressive, but you're vastly outnumbered. The Council fleet has over 10,000 vessels. Surely we can resolve this diplomatically. Chen's smile widened. Admiral, I think you're operating under some outdated assumptions about human capabilities. Lieutenant Rodriguez, show the Admiral what we've been working on. A human female with short black hair stepped forward and activated a holographic display. The image that appeared made Zefka's 4 hearts stop beating. It was a star map showing the current positions of Council fleet vessels throughout known space. Every ship was marked with precise coordinates, crew complements, weapon specifications, and tactical assessments. The level of detail was staggering and impossible. The Council's communications were encrypted with quantum-level security that no known technology could break. How? Zefka whispered. Humans have always been good at reverse engineering technology, Chen replied, and we've had 50 years to study Council systems. Did you really think we were just sitting quietly in our corner of space, grateful for your acceptance? Lieutenant Vextal's voice cracked as he spoke. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the human ship. Their weapons are powering up. Chen held up a hand. Peace, Admiral. We're not here to start a war today. We're here to deliver a message. What message? Zefka demanded. The message is simple, Chen said. Humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist in this galaxy. We're informing you that we intend to take our place as equals, whether the Council approves or not. The Retribution is just the first of 12 ships of this class. We call them the Titan-class dreadnoughts. 12 ships. 12 vessels this size would represent more firepower than half the Council fleet combined. This is madness, Zefka said. You'll bring the entire galaxy down on your heads. Will we? Chen asked. Let me share something interesting we discovered during our research. Do you know how many species the Council has integrated over the past 1,000 years? Zefka remained silent. 47, Chen continued. Do you know how many of those species joined voluntarily? Again, silence. 3, Chen said. The rest were conquered, absorbed, or coerced through economic pressure. The Council presents itself as a peaceful alliance, but it's actually the galaxy's most successful empire. The difference is that you're subtle about it. The truth of Chen's words hit Zefka like a physical blow. She had been part of several integration missions during her career. The Council always found reasons why new species needed guidance, protection, or correction. What do you want? She asked. Simple, Chen replied. Recognition of human territorial claims, representation on the Council proportional to our population and resources, and most importantly, respect. We're done being treated like barbarians who should be grateful for scraps from the Galactic table. The Council will never agree to those terms. Chen's expression hardened. Then the Council will learn why human beings conquered their homeworld, before they learned to fly. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the stellar harmony in stunned silence. Admiral, Vextal whispered. What do we do? Zefka stared at the massive human warship floating before them. In her career, she had faced pirates, rebels, and rogue states, but she had never encountered anything like this. A species that had been quietly preparing for this moment for half a century, building weapons and gathering intelligence while presenting themselves as primitive and harmless. We report to the Council, she said finally, and we pray they're wise enough to listen. But as she gave the order to retreat, Zefka couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable for 1,000 years was crumbling, and humanity was holding the hammer. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human might was just beginning. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never been designed for this kind of tension. Built to showcase the harmony and cooperation between species, its soaring crystal walls and flowing architecture suddenly felt fragile, as if the wrong word might shatter the carefully maintained peace of 1,000 years. Representative Kolmar of the Draconian Empire stood at the central podium, his reptilian features twisted with barely contained rage. His voice echoed through the chamber as he addressed the assembled delegates. Honored members of the Council, he began, his words dripping with venom. We face an unprecedented threat to galactic stability. These humans, have violated every principle upon which our civilization is built. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Representatives from dozens of species whispered among themselves in languages that ranged from melodic singing to harsh clicking sounds. The translation systems worked overtime to keep pace with the growing chaos. High Chancellor Morden, the ancient ethereal who had led the council for over 3 centuries, raised one of his 6 arms for silence. His form was translucent and shimmering, more energy than matter after his species' evolution beyond physical form. Representative Colmar. Morden's voice resonated directly in the minds of every delegate. Please present the evidence for your claims. Colmar activated the chamber's holographic display. The image of the retribution appeared, rotating slowly in the center of the hall. Even as a projection, its size was overwhelming. This, Colmar announced, is what humanity has been building in secret. A weapon of war that violates the Treaty of Stellar Limitations, the Non-Aggression Pact of Vega, and the Colonial Development Restrictions. The representatives from younger species stared in awe. The older civilizations watched with calculating expressions. Representative Yilnara of the Peaceful Federation spoke up. Her species had evolved past the need for violence eons ago, their bodies resembling graceful trees more than anything else. Surely this must be some form of misunderstanding. The humans have been model citizens since joining our community. Model citizens? Colmar's laugh was harsh. They've been spying on us. Every communication, every fleet movement, every council session has been monitored and recorded. They've turned our own openness against us. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several delegates demanded to see evidence. Others called for immediate military action. High Chancellor Morden's mental voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Silence. Representative Colmar, how do you know about this intelligence gathering? Because they told us, Colmar replied grimly. Captain Chen transmitted a data package containing detailed intelligence on every council member species. Fleet, positions, economic reports, internal political analyses, information that should have been impossible for them to obtain. He activated another section of the display. Suddenly, the chamber was filled with classified council documents, military assessments, and private communications between member governments. Representative Zalthor of the Merchant Consortium gasped as his species' private trade negotiations with the Altarians appeared in the display. This is outrageous. These communications were encrypted with quantum-locked protocols. And yet, Colmar said coldly, the humans cracked them all. The question we must ask ourselves is not how they did it, but why they're revealing it now. In the observation gallery reserved for non-council species, Ambassador Sarah Chen, Captain Marcus Chen's sister, watched the proceedings with interest. Unlike her brother, Sarah was a diplomat by training and temperament. She had spent the last 20 years building relationships throughout council space, learning languages, understanding cultures, and most importantly, identifying weaknesses. The humans wish to speak, she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite its lack of amplification. The hall fell silent. All eyes turned to the slight human female who had remained quiet throughout the proceedings, Chiu. Chancellor Morden's attention focused on her like a searchlight. Ambassador Chen, your species was not granted speaking privileges in this emergency session. With respect, Chancellor, Sarah replied calmly. My species was not invited to participate in this discussion about our actions. Don't you think that's a bit unfair? Representative Colmar's tail lashed violently. Unfair? You threaten the stability of galactic civilization and speak of fairness? Sarah smiled, the same cold expression her brother had used. Representative Colmar, in the past 50 years, how many times has humanity been consulted about major council decisions? That is irrelevant. Is it? Sarah interrupted. Because our analysis shows that council policies have resulted in significant restrictions on human expansion, trade limitations that favor established species, and technology sharing agreements that flow only one direction. She activated a data pad, and information began appearing on the chamber's displays. Financial records, Treaty documents and trade statistics painted a clear picture of systematic economic restrictions placed on human development. For 50 years, Sarah continued, humanity has been told to be patient, to wait our turn, to accept junior status while more established species reaped the benefits of galactic commerce. We were grateful at first, honored to be included at all. Representative Yilnara leaned forward. Ambassador, surely you understand that new members must prove themselves responsible before being granted full privileges. Responsible? Sarah's voice hardened. We've fought alongside Council forces in 6 conflicts. Human ships have died protecting Council member worlds. Human scientists have contributed to medical breakthroughs that saved billions of lives across dozens of species. How exactly have we been irresponsible? The chamber fell quiet. The truth was that human contributions to Council civilization had been significant and consistent. Your species builds weapons, Representative Kolmar stated flatly. Every species builds weapons, Sarah replied. The difference is that we build them to match the threats we face, rather than the limits imposed by treaties written before we existed. High Chancellor Morden's form flickered slightly, a sign of deep thought among his species. Ambassador Chen, what does humanity want? Simple, Sarah said. We want what every species in this chamber has: respect, fair representation, and the right to defend ourselves. By building ships that could destroy entire fleets? Representative Kolmar demanded. By building ships that ensure we never have. 2, Sarah replied. Tell me, Representative, when was the last time the Draconian Empire was threatened by pirates? When did anyone last demand that your species limit their military capabilities or accept unfavorable trade agreements? Kolmar remained silent. The answer, Sarah continued, is never. Because everyone knows that attacking the Draconian Empire would be costly and dangerous. We're simply establishing the same understanding about humanity. Representative Zalthor spoke up. But the implications. If every species begins building ships of this size, then perhaps, Sarah said quietly, the Council will be forced to treat all its members fairly, rather than maintaining artificial hierarchies based on how long each species has been spacefaring. The chamber erupted again. Some delegates shouted support for Sarah's words. Others demanded immediate military action against humanity. The careful order of Council deliberations was breaking down. High Chancellor Morden raised all 6 arms, his form blazing with ethereal light. The mental command for silence was so powerful that several delegates stumbled. This session is adjourned, he announced. All representatives will report to their governments for consultation. We will reconvene in 72 hours to vote on our response. As the delegates filed out, many shooting suspicious glances at Ambassador Chen, Sarah remained in her seat. She activated her communicator and spoke in rapid, coded English. Phase 1 complete, she said quietly. They're scared, confused, and divided. Half of them are ready to negotiate, the other half want to fight. Perfect. Her brother's voice crackled through the device. What about the Chancellor? Sarah smiled. Morden is 300 years old and has seen a dozen wars. He knows the cost of conflict. He'll push for negotiation. And if he doesn't? Sarah's expression hardened, matching her brother's cold demeanor. Then he'll learn why humanity spent 50 years preparing for this conversation instead of just hoping for the best. The chamber was empty now, except for Sarah and the massive display still showing human intelligence on Council activities. She looked up at the soaring crystal architecture, at the beautiful symbols of galactic harmony and cooperation. Pretty, she murmured, but pretty doesn't stop bullets. Outside the Council chambers, the machinery of galactic government began to turn. Messages flashed between worlds at faster-than-light speeds. Military commanders reviewed contingency plans. Politicians calculated the costs of war versus the costs of compromise. And somewhere in the void between stars, 11 more Titan-class dreadnoughts waited in the darkness, their crews watching and listening as the galaxy decided humanity's fate. The age of human patience was over. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Retribution, watching the lights of distant stars through the reinforced viewports. Behind her, The massive warship hummed with activity as her crew ran final diagnostics on weapons, systems that could glass a planet. She wasn't supposed to be here. According to the original mission parameters, only Captain Chen and his hand-picked crew were meant to make first contact with the Council fleet. But Elena had argued for a different approach, one that required both military and scientific expertise. Captain, her science officer, Dr. James Park, approached with a data pad in hand. The quantum resonance analysis is complete. We've successfully mapped the Council's communication network. Elena nodded, though her attention remained fixed on the stars. How deep does it go? Deeper than we expected, Dr. Park replied. The network connects not just government facilities, but civilian infrastructure, private corporations, even personal devices. The entire galactic civilization runs on interconnected quantum channels. Which means, Dr. Park said quietly, if we wanted to, we could shut down everything. Transportation, commerce, communication, the entire galactic economy would collapse within hours. Elena finally turned to face him. She was younger than Marcus Chen, with short auburn hair and intense green eyes that had seen too much combat for someone barely past 30. That's not why we're here, James. I know, he replied, but the Council doesn't know that. They're probably assuming we've already weaponized this capability. A chime from the bridge communication system interrupted their conversation. Captain Vasquez to the bridge. Priority message from the Council fleet. Elena made her way through, corridors filled with busy crew members. The retribution was indeed massive, but every square meter was used efficiently. Unlike the flowing artistic designs of Council ships, human vessels were built for function above form. On the bridge, she found Marcus Chen studying tactical displays with his command staff. The older captain looked up as she approached. Elena, he said, we have a problem. The Council fleet has been reinforced. Admiral Zefka's single cruiser has become a battle group of 20 ships. Elena examined the tactical plot. The Council vessels had arranged themselves in a classic siege formation, positioned to prevent the retribution from jumping to hyperspace while maintaining maximum firepower coverage. Recommendations? Marcus asked. They're scared, Elena replied. This is a show of force designed to intimidate us into backing down. The question is whether they're prepared to actually fight. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, the ship's tactical officer, spoke up. Captain, we're detecting active sensor locks from multiple Council vessels. They're targeting our engines and weapon systems. Marcus nodded grimly. Typical Council strategy. Disable rather than destroy, then force surrender through superior numbers. Would it work? Elena asked. Marcus smiled, the cold expression that was becoming his trademark. Against any other species? Probably. Against us? He gestured to the displays showing the ship's status. They're about to learn why human military doctrine emphasizes redundancy. Elena understood. Human ships were built with multiple backup systems, alternate power sources, and distributed critical functions. Disabling a human warship required destroying it entirely, something the Council had never needed to do to other species. Incoming. Transmission from the Council flagship, Communications Officer Reynolds announced. Put it through, Marcus ordered. Admiral Zefka appeared on the main screen, her alien features tight with stress. Behind her, Elena could see a bridge filled with representatives from multiple Council species. Clearly, this had become more than a simple military encounter. Captain Chen, Zefka began formally, I am authorized by the Galactic Council to offer you terms for peaceful resolution of this crisis. I'm listening, Marcus replied. A new figure stepped into view, an elderly Altarian with the flowing robes of a Council diplomat. Captain, I am Minister Veltar, Chief Negotiator for the Council. We are prepared to offer humanity significant concessions in exchange for your withdrawal from this region and the decommissioning of your larger vessels. What kind of concessions? Elena asked, stepping forward. Minister Veltar's silver skin rippled slightly. Full Council membership with voting rights, expanded trade privileges, and access to advanced technologies previously restricted to senior member species. Marcus and Elena exchanged glances. It was more than humanity had ever been offered before. In exchange for? Marcus prompted. Compliance with existing treaty limitations on military vessel construction, Veltar replied, and full disclosure of any other projects similar to this ship. Elena could see the trap. The Council was offering meaningful concessions, but only in exchange for humanity returning to a subordinate position, one where they could be slowly integrated and controlled over time. Minister, Elena said, those are generous terms. But they assume that humanity's goal is simply better treatment within the existing system. Is it not? Veltar asked. No, Marcus replied flatly. Our goal is to ensure that humanity can never again be put in a position where we must beg for scraps from the Galactic table. Admiral Zefka leaned forward. Captain, you must understand the implications of what you're demanding. If every species in the galaxy builds weapons like yours, then every species will be equally capable of defending itself, Elena interrupted. Tell me, Admiral, what's wrong with that? It would mean the end of civilized space, Veltar said. The Council exists to prevent exactly this kind of arms escalation. Elena activated her own data pad and transmitted information to the Council. Ships. Minister, I'm sending you a historical analysis prepared by human xenosociologists. It details the military capabilities of every Council member species over the past 1,000 years. The data appeared on screens throughout the Council bridge. Elena could see the shocked expressions as the implications became clear. As you can see, Elena continued, the species that founded the Council have always maintained military superiority over newer members. The limitations imposed by Council treaties don't apply equally to all species. The truth was devastating in its simplicity. The Draconians, Altarians, Ethereals, and other founding species had grandfathered their existing fleets under treaty exemptions. Only newer species were subject to the restrictions that kept them militarily inferior. This is different, Minister Veltar stammered. Those species have proven their commitment to peace. Have they? Marcus asked. Or have they simply proven that they don't need to fight when they can achieve their goals through political and economic pressure? Elena brought up another display. Minister, in the past century, how many conflicts have been resolved through Council intervention? Dozens, Veltar replied proudly. And in how many of those conflicts did the Council side with the more militarily powerful species? Silence fell over the Council bridge. The answer, Elena said quietly, is all of them. The Council doesn't prevent wars. It ensures that weaker species surrender before wars become necessary. Dr. Park's voice crackled through, Elena's communicator. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Council fleet. They're preparing to fire. Elena looked directly at Admiral Zefka. Admiral, are you really prepared to start a war over this? We're prepared to defend galactic civilization, Zefka replied, though her voice wavered slightly. Marcus stepped forward. Admiral, before you give that order, let me share something with you. Elena, activate the demonstration. Elena nodded and sent a coded signal to the ship's tactical systems. Throughout the retribution, weapon systems that had been dormant suddenly came online. The ship's true firepower was revealed for the first time. The Council fleet's sensors screamed warnings as energy readings spiked beyond their measurement capabilities. What they had thought was a single massive weapon turned out to be hundreds of individual systems, each more powerful than anything in the Council arsenal. My God, Admiral Zefka whispered. Admiral, Marcus said calmly. Your 20 ships represent approximately 15% of the firepower currently aimed at you. We don't want to fight you, but if you force this conflict, it will be brief and decisive. Elena watched the faces on the Council bridge. Fear, shock, and dawning understanding played across alien features as the reality of the situation became clear. What do you want? Minister Veltar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Partnership, Elena replied. Not membership in your council, but recognition as equals. We propose a new treaty, one that applies the same rules to all species, regardless of when they achieved spaceflight. Impossible, Veltar said. The founding species would never agree. The founding species, Marcus interrupted, are about to discover that their military advantage has evaporated. We estimate that human technological development is now roughly 50 years ahead of the galactic average. We can either share that advancement through cooperation, or we can keep it to ourselves. Elena activated one final display. Minister Admiral, I'm transmitting the technical specifications for our quantum communication breakthrough, our advanced fusion reactors, and our gravitational manipulation systems. Consider it a gesture of good faith. The information that appeared on their screens represented centuries of potential advancement for Council species. Technology that could revolutionize space travel, communication, and energy production. This is what partnership looks like, Elena said. Mutual benefit, shared advancement, and equal respect. The alternative is for humanity to go its own way, leaving the Council to stagnate while we explore the galaxy alone. Admiral Zefka stared at the technical readouts. How did you advance so quickly? Elena smiled, not Marcus's cold expression, but something warmer. Admiral, when you're treated as the junior member of every group, you learn to work harder than everyone else. Humans have spent 50 years assuming we'd eventually need to defend ourselves. It turned out we were right. The Council will need time to consider these proposals, Minister Veltar said. Of course, Marcus replied. We'll wait 72 hours for a response. After that, humanity will proceed with or without Council cooperation. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the retribution in contemplative silence. Elena looked at Marcus. Think they'll accept? Some will, Marcus replied. Others will try to fight. But after today, no one will ever again assume that humanity can be bullied into compliance. Elena nodded and returned to the observation deck. Outside, the lights of distant stars seemed brighter somehow, as if the universe itself had changed. In a way, it had. The age of human subordination was ending. The age of human equality was about to begin. Chapter 4. The New Galactic Order. 6 months later, the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different. Where once representatives had sat in carefully arranged hierarchies based on their species' age and power, now the seating was alphabetical. The symbolic change reflected a much deeper transformation in galactic politics. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the section reserved for humanity's delegation, reviewing the agenda for what historians would later call the Treaty of New Harmony session. Beside her, Captain Marcus Chen wore a dress uniform instead of battle gear, though his cold expression remained unchanged. High Chancellor Morden floated at the center of the assembly, his ethereal form dimmer than it had been 6 months ago. The stress of galactic reorganization had taken its toll even on his energy-based physiology. Honored delegates, Morden's mental voice resonated through the chamber. We gather today to formally ratify the new structure of galactic civilization. Before we proceed, let us review what has changed. The chamber's displays activated, showing a comprehensive overview of the past 6 months. The information was staggering in its scope. The Human Confederation has established formal diplomatic relations with 47 independent species previously outside Council influence, Morden continued. Human technology transfers have accelerated development across dozens of worlds, and most significantly, the military balance of power in known space has been fundamentally altered. That was an understatement. In the 6 months since the Retribution's Connors demonstration, 3 more Titan-class dreadnoughts had been revealed, along with a supporting fleet of advanced cruisers and destroyers. More disturbing to the established powers, humanity had begun sharing military technology with species that had previously been restricted to minimal defensive capabilities. Representative Kolmar of the Draconian Empire stood to address the assembly. His reptilian features showed the strain of recent months. His species had gone from being one of the galaxy's premier military powers to being just another voice in an increasingly crowded field. Honored Chancellor, Kolmar began, the Draconian Empire wishes to express its concerns about the pace of these changes. Galactic stability has been maintained for 1,000 years through careful balance and gradual progress. These rapid alterations threaten the foundations of our civilization. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the representatives of the older species. Ambassador Sarah Chen rose to respond. Representative Colmar, you speak of stability, but stability for whom? The system you defend maintained peace by ensuring that some species remained permanently subordinate to others. That wasn't stability, it was controlled oppression. The council system prevented wars, Colmar snapped. It prevented wars by making them unnecessary, Sarah replied calmly. When one group has overwhelming military and economic advantages, the weaker groups have no choice but to submit. That's not peace, it's conquest by other means. Captain Elena Vasquez, now serving as humanity's military liaison to the Council, activated a holographic display. Representative Colmar, in the past 6 months, how many conflicts have been resolved through negotiation rather than intimidation? The display showed recent diplomatic successes. Territorial disputes that had festered for decades were suddenly being resolved through compromise. Trade disagreements that had previously been settled by economic pressure were now handled through mutual concessions. 17 major disputes settled peacefully, Elena continued. More than in the previous 10 years combined. When all parties have roughly equal power, they're forced to find solutions that work for everyone. Representative Yil Nara of the Peaceful Federation spoke up. Her tree-like species had been among the strongest supporters of the new system. The evidence is clear. True equality creates genuine peace, not the artificial quiet of suppressed dissent. High Chancellor Morden gestured for attention. The treaty before us today formalizes these changes. Let us review the key provisions. The terms appeared on screens throughout the chamber. Military parity agreements ensuring all species could maintain defensive forces proportional to their population and territory. Technology sharing protocols requiring advanced civilizations to make defensive technologies available to all council members. Economic fairness. Standards preventing the use of trade restrictions as tools of political control. Representation reforms giving all species equal voting rights, regardless of their length of council membership. The establishment of a new galactic security force with representatives from all member species. These terms, Representative Colmar protested, essentially dismantle everything the Council has built over a millennium. No, Sarah replied. They dismantle the systems that allowed some species to dominate others. The Council's stated goals, peace, cooperation, mutual advancement, those remain unchanged. Only the methods are different. Ambassador Zalthor of the Merchant Consortium raised a concern. Ambassador Chen, while these reforms sound admirable in principle, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply replace the current dominant powers with itself? It was a valid question. Several species had expressed similar concerns privately. Marcus Chen stood to answer. Ambassador Zalthor, I understand your concern. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. A saying from human history. That's precisely why we're advocating for a system where no species can achieve dominance. He activated his own display, showing the distribution of military and economic power under the new system. As you can see, humanity will be strong enough to defend itself and its interests, but not strong enough to impose its will on others. The same applies to every other species in the galaxy. But what if humanity continues to advance faster than other species? Zalthor pressed. Your technological development has been extraordinary, Elena Vasquez answered this time. Ambassador, human advancement came from necessity and desperation. We had to innovate because we couldn't rely on anyone else's protection. Under the new system, all species will have access to the resources and information needed for rapid development. She brought up another set of data. We've already seen remarkable progress. The Altarian shipyards have reduced construction time by 40% using human manufacturing techniques. Centauri energy systems are 30% more efficient after incorporating our fusion improvements. The Peaceful Federation's agricultural worlds are producing record harvests with our soil enhancement methods. Shared advancement benefits. Everyone, Sarah added. When all species are developing rapidly, no one can establish permanent dominance. Representative Nelia of the Avian Confederation, who had remained quiet throughout the debate, finally spoke. I have a question for the human delegation. Your species has achieved a position of strength. Why are you willing to share it? Most species in your position would seek to consolidate their advantages. The chamber fell silent. It was the question many had been thinking, but few had dared to ask. Marcus Chen was quiet for a long moment before answering. Representative Nelia, my species has a saying, power shared is power multiplied. We learned through bitter experience that trying to go it alone leads to isolation and conflict. We'd rather have a galaxy full of strong allies than a galaxy full of weak subjects. Sarah nodded and added, more practically, a galaxy where every species is developing and advancing creates opportunities that benefit everyone. Human corporations are already profiting from trade with newly empowered civilizations. Our scientists are collaborating on research projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Our military doesn't have to worry about maintaining control over dozens of reluctant subjects. Cooperation is more profitable than domination, Elena added, and much less exhausting. High Chancellor Morden's form pulsed with what his species considered amusement. The human delegation makes compelling arguments. Are there any other concerns before we proceed to the formal vote? Representative Colmar made one final attempt. Chancellor, these changes are irreversible. Once we abandon the systems that have maintained order for a millennium, we cannot go back. What if this experiment fails? Sarah Chen stood once more, her expression serious. Representative Colmar, you're absolutely right. This is irreversible. But so was the moment 50 years ago when humanity first encountered galactic civilization. So was the moment 6 months ago when we demonstrated that the old balance of power was already broken. She gestured to the displays still showing the new technological and military realities. The choice isn't between change and the status quo. The choice is between managed change that benefits everyone or chaotic change that benefits no one. Marcus. Chen added his voice to his sister's. The galaxy has already changed. We're simply offering a framework for managing that change peacefully. High Chancellor Morden raised all 6 of his arms. The debate is concluded. All delegates will now vote on the Treaty of New Harmony. Those in favor? Lights began appearing throughout the chamber as representatives activated their voting systems. The process took several minutes as each delegation consulted among themselves. When the final tally appeared, the results were closer than many had expected. 63% in favor, 37% opposed. It was enough to pass, but the margin revealed the deep divisions that remained in galactic society. The Treaty of New Harmony is ratified, Morden announced. May it bring genuine peace to all our worlds. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Sarah noticed that the conversations in the corridors were different from 6 months ago. Representatives who had previously formed exclusive clusters based on their species' power levels were now mixing freely, forming new alliances based on common interests rather than ancient hierarchies. Captain Elena Vasquez approached her. Think it will work? Sarah watched as Representative Nelia engaged in animated discussion with delegates from 3 different species, planning what appeared to be a joint research initiative. Look around, Elena. It's already working. Marcus Chen joined them, his cold expression softening slightly. The hard part's over. Now comes the harder part, making sure we live up to our promises. Any regrets? Elena asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering. About changing the galaxy? No. About the methods we had to use? Some. Building the Titan-class ships meant diverting resources from peaceful development. Training crews for war meant taking them away from exploration and research. But necessary, Sarah observed. Necessary, Marcus agreed. Sometimes you have to be willing to fight in order to avoid fighting. Elena nodded toward the observation windows, where the lights of hundreds of ships could be seen. The space around the council chambers was filled with vessels from dozens of species, many displaying technological improvements that had been shared through the new cooperation protocols. Look at that, she said. 6 months ago, half those species couldn't afford to send representatives to council sessions. Now they have the resources and technology to participate as equals. Sarah smiled, the first genuinely warm expression any of the Chen siblings had shown in months. That's what makes it worthwhile. Not the power, not the respect, but the opportunity to help others achieve the same things we have. As they made their way toward the docking bay where human shuttles waited to return them to their ships, they passed through a section of the station that had been converted into a cultural exchange center. The walls were covered with art from dozens of worlds, representing the explosion of creativity that had followed the loosening of restrictions on interspecies contact. A group of young beings from various species, too young to remember the old system, worked together on what appeared to be a collaborative sculpture. They chattered in a mixture of languages using translation devices that would have been restricted technology just months ago. That's the future, Sarah said quietly. Not the treaties or the technology transfers, but that beings working together, because they want to, not because they have to. Marcus nodded. Then we did the right thing. As they boarded their shuttle for the return journey to the Retribution, Elena looked back at the council station. What's next for humanity? Exploration, Marcus replied immediately. Now that we don't have to worry about defending ourselves from the galaxy's established powers, we can focus on pushing the boundaries of known space. Research, Sarah added. We've learned so much from other species in just 6 months. Imagine what we might discover when we're not limited by artificial restrictions. Growth, Elena concluded. Not just for us, but for everyone. That's what this was really about, creating space for every species to reach their potential. The shuttle undocked and began its journey back to the human fleet. Through the viewports, they could see ships from dozens of species heading in different directions, some returning home with new technologies and ideas, others setting out on joint missions that would have been impossible under the old system. Computer, Marcus said, record a message for the fleet. Recording. The shuttle's AI responded. This is Captain Chen. Phase 3 is complete. The treaty has been ratified, and the new Galactic Order is now official. All ships are to maintain current positions and continue cooperation protocols with allied vessels. The age of human isolation is over. The age of human partnership has begun. He paused, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed quite so cold and distant. Good work, everyone. Now let's see what we can build together. Epilogue. New Horizons. 1 year later. Dr. James Park stood on the observation deck of the New Horizons, humanity's first exploration vessel built using collaborative, galactic technology. Through the reinforced viewports, he could see something that would have been impossible just 18 months ago. A joint research station staffed by scientists from 12 different species, all working together to study the mysterious phenomena at the galaxy's edge. The station was beautiful in its diversity. Flowing Altarian bioarchitecture merged seamlessly with crystalline Centauri structures and solid human engineering. Ships from a dozen worlds docked at its various ports. There, crews sharing knowledge and resources in ways that the old council system had never permitted. Magnificent, isn't it? Came a voice behind him. Park turned to see Ambassador Sarah Chen approaching, her diplomatic robes replaced by the practical uniform of a research expedition. She looked more relaxed than he had ever seen her, the constant tension of political maneuvering replaced by the excitement of discovery. It really is, Park agreed. 6 months of construction and we have humanity's most advanced research facility. Not bad for a species that was considered primitive just 2 years ago. Sarah laughed. Amazing what you can accomplish when you're not spending 90% of your resources on defense and political survival. Through the viewports, they could see the reason for the station's existence. At the very edge of the galaxy, space itself seemed to shimmer and bend in impossible ways. Long-range sensors detected energy patterns unlike anything in known physics. It was exactly the kind of mystery that required the combined expertise of multiple species to understand. Any word from the deep exploration team? Park asked. The Retribution checked in this morning, Sarah replied. Marcus found what appears to be an entire galaxy beyond our own. One that shows signs of active civilization. Park's eyebrows rose. Another galaxy with spacefaring species? Multiple species, according to the preliminary reports. And they appear to be significantly more advanced than anything we've encountered in our own galaxy. The implications were staggering. Everything they had learned about galactic civilization might be just the beginning. How are the other species handling the news? Park asked. Sarah smiled. Remarkably well, actually. Instead of panic or territorial disputes, there's excitement about the possibilities for contact and cooperation. The new treaty framework has changed how we think about encountering other civilizations. A chime from the station's communication system interrupted their conversation. All senior staff to Conference Room Alpha. Priority briefing begins in 10 minutes. As they made their way through the station's corridors, Park marveled at the casual interactions between species that had barely been on speaking terms just 2 years ago. A human engineer consulted with an Altarian biospecialist about optimal growing conditions for food production. A group of Centauri physicists debated quantum mechanics with their draconian counterparts. Young beings from various worlds worked together on projects that none of their species could have attempted alone. The conference room was filled with the expedition's senior staff, representatives from every participating species. At the head of the table, Admiral Elena Vasquez, recently promoted to head of Galactic Exploration Command, called the meeting to order. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," she began. "We've received some extraordinary data from Captain Chen's deep exploration mission. I'll let him present it himself." The room's main display activated, showing Marcus Chen's familiar features. Behind him, the bridge of the Retribution bustled with activity as his crew processed unprecedented amounts of information. "Admiral, colleagues," Marcus began. "What we've discovered changes everything we thought we knew about the universe. The galaxy we've identified contains at least 50 distinct spacefaring civilizations, many of which appear to have technologies centuries ahead of our own." The display shifted to show long-range sensor readings and preliminary analysis. The data was mind-boggling in its implications. "More importantly," Marcus continued, "preliminary communication attempts suggest that these civilizations have formed something similar to our new galactic order, a cooperative alliance based on mutual benefit rather than domination." Excited murmurs filled the conference room. After centuries of assuming that their galaxy was the center of the universe, the discovery of an even more advanced civilization that had reached similar conclusions about cooperation was both humbling and encouraging. "Captain," Admiral Vasquez asked, "what's your assessment of their intentions toward us?" "Unknown," Marcus replied honestly. "But their response to our presence has been curious rather than hostile. They seem as interested in studying us as we are in studying them." Dr. Park leaned forward. "Captain, are we looking at potential first contact with an entire galactic civilization?" "That's exactly what we're looking at," Marcus confirmed. "And based on their technological signatures, they've been aware of our galaxy for some time. The question is whether they consider us advanced enough for formal contact." Sarah Chen spoke up. "What criteria might they use to make that determination?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "If I had to guess, based on what we've learned about their civilization, they're probably waiting to see if we can achieve genuine peace and cooperation in our own galaxy before they're willing to engage with us as equals." The implication was clear. Humanity's efforts to reform galactic civilization weren't just about local politics. They might be a test that would determine whether their entire galaxy was ready to join a larger community of civilizations. "No pressure," Admiral Vasquez said dryly, earning chuckles from around the room. "Actually," Sarah said thoughtfully, "this gives our reform efforts a new context. We're not just building a better galaxy for ourselves. We're proving that our species are mature enough to participate in something much larger." Park nodded. "It changes the stakes considerably. Success means joining a community of advanced civilizations. Failure means remaining isolated at the edge of known space." Marcus's image flickered as the transmission was affected by the strange energy phenomena at the galaxy's edge. "There's something else. We've detected what appear to be monitoring stations, ancient structures positioned at key points around our galaxy. Someone has been watching us for a very long time." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Their entire history, the rise and fall of civilizations, the formation of the Council, humanity's recent emergence as a galactic power, all of it had been observed and recorded by advanced beings from beyond their galaxy. "How long?" Admiral Vasquez asked quietly. "Based on the energy signatures, at least 10,000 years, Marcus replied. "Possibly longer." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "They've been watching us the entire time, watching and waiting." "Waiting? For what?" Dr. Park asked. "For us to grow up," Sarah replied. "For us to prove that we can work together instead of destroying each other." Admiral Vasquez stood and began pacing, a habit she had developed during her years as a combat officer. "So where does this leave us?" "With a choice," Marcus said from the display. "We can continue developing our own civilization in isolation, or we can work toward meeting whatever criteria these advanced beings have set for contact." "And if we fail their test?" someone asked. Marcus's expression was serious. "Then we remain alone in our galaxy, cut off from the larger community of civilizations that exists beyond our borders." The meeting continued for several more hours as the implications were discussed and analyzed. By the time it ended, everyone present understood that they were facing the most important challenge in galactic history. As the participants filed out, Sarah remained behind with Admiral Vasquez and Dr. Park. "Elena," Sarah said quietly, "what are the odds that our reforms will succeed in time to meet whatever criteria these beings have set?" Admiral Vasquez considered the question carefully. "Based on current progress, better than I would have expected a year ago. The cooperative framework is holding, and most species are adapting well to the new system. But it's still fragile," Dr. Park added. "The younger species are embracing the changes enthusiastically. It's the older civilizations that are still struggling to adapt." "Understandable," Sarah mused. "When you've been dominant for centuries, equality feels like oppression." "The question," Admiral Vasquez said, "is whether we have enough time. If these advanced beings have been watching for 10,000 years, they probably have specific milestones in mind." Sarah stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the research station, where beings from dozens of worlds worked together, in ways that would have been impossible just 2 years ago. "Maybe," she said finally, "the test isn't about achieving perfect peace or eliminating all conflict. Maybe it's about proving that we can resolve our differences without destroying ourselves." "You think we're already being tested?" Dr. Park asked. Sarah nodded. "I think humanity's emergence, the treaty negotiations, the formation of the new galactic order, all of it might be part of an ongoing evaluation. The question is whether we're passing." Admiral Vasquez joined her at the viewport. "Well, we've come this far. A primitive species that was barely noticed 2 years ago has fundamentally altered the balance of power in known space and created a framework for genuine galactic cooperation. That has to count for something." "The real test," Sarah said, "will be whether we can maintain this system long enough for it to become permanent. Whether we can prove that cooperation is stronger than competition." As if summoned by her words, the station's communication system chimed with an incoming message. The display activated to show the face of High Chancellor Morden, his ethereal features bright with excitement. "Admiral Vasquez, Ambassador Chen," he said, "I have remarkable news. We've just received formal applications for Council membership from 18 previously uncontacted species. They cite the new cooperative framework as their reason for seeking association with galactic civilization." Sarah and Elena exchanged glances. 18 new species choosing to join the galactic community specifically because of the reforms humanity had championed. "Chancellor," Sarah asked, "what's changed? These species have been aware of the Council for decades. Why apply now?" "According to their communications," Morden replied, "they were waiting for evidence that galactic civilization had evolved beyond the domination models of the past. Our recent reforms have convinced them that the time has come to participate." After the transmission ended, the three humans stood in contemplative silence. 18 species, Dr. Park said finally. 18 civilizations that were holding back until they saw evidence of genuine change. Makes you wonder, Admiral Vasquez mused, how many others are out there, watching and waiting? Sarah smiled, the same warm expression she had shown after the treaty ratification. It makes me think we're on the right track, not just for our own galaxy, but for whatever comes next. She looked out at the stars, no longer cold and distant but full of possibility. Somewhere beyond the edge of known space, advanced civilizations were watching and evaluating. Somewhere in the darkness, monitoring stations recorded every development in galactic politics. And somewhere in the future, near or far, she couldn't know, first contact with something truly alien awaited. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. The age of universal contact was still to come. But for the first time in human history, Sarah Chen was confident that when that moment arrived, her species would be ready. The stars had never seemed brighter. End of story.